Okay.
Sir, you are host.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So let's start. Today's topic is about social movements. This is Unit 61. Before I start, let me reiterate this presentation or this class gets live streamed. So if you're on your WhatsApp group, which I'm not, you can see the class later. The way this class functions, anybody can stop me at any moment of time to ask a question or to add something that I'm talking about, or to add anything that one feels is of interest to everybody else. Let me also reiterate the fact this in scholarly work, these are perspectives. There is no right, wrong, good, bad, nice, ugly. These are perspectives. This particular SLM on social movements, I have done a little deviation from your self-learning module booklet, which will come to explain such certain things a little better, especially the diaspora part. I picked up some information from outside, which I'm going to put it in front of you. So without much ado, let me share my presentation. Uh, are you able to look at the slide? Are you able to see the slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And does the slide move now? Is the slide moving?
No, sir.
Okay, perfect. Hang on. There is this brilliant technology where the slides don't move. Let me share again. I think now it'll. Now, are you able to see the second slide? The objectives?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So what we are going to do in this PPT, understand what social movement is in the context of caste. As I told you last time also, these couple of units that we are doing in terms of stratification, in terms of family kinship, these are totally in the realm of sociology. Why we are doing it is because everything on the sociological plane affects transnational spaces today, affects diaspora. In fact, the whole definition of diaspora from the earlier conceived classical diaspora definitions, or which was applicable to Jews, no longer exists because people, the conditions become totally different. I was reading about lately. I think I told you last time also, Dubai is introducing something called as gaming visa, where if you are a visual artist, performing artist, and other with respect to gaming, mobile and otherwise, you can get a long-term visa for Dubai. Now, does a long-term, let's say a 25-year-old visa, 25-year-old visa, and you go and stay for 25, does it make you a migrant or a diaspora? Now, that itself, the whole diaspora definitions, migrant, transnational, it's itself evolving very fast, and a whole lot of work is being done in these spaces. So, social movement as a term was coined in 50 by German sociologist Lorenz von Stein, act of carrying out, resisting, or undoing a social change. And as soon as we put it that it is an act of carrying out, resisting, or undoing a social change, it very much falls in the realm of politics. Because more often than not, anything that you try and change in a social setup has an underlying political context to it. A social movement generally aims to bring about reforms or changes in social structure. It is the result of society's deprivation and exploitation. And more often than not, always there are a set of people who are restless with whatever is presented to them as it is, and they want to change. For example, we have seen the caste system. We have also looked at the fact that historically, there was always pressures on the caste system in terms of people and communities wanting to change. They had various ways in which they tried to do the change. A famous Indian sociologist, M.N. Srinivasan, coined two terms, Sanskritization and Westernization, by which lower castes were able to change and come to a higher caste. Graham Wallace, English social psychologist, social movement develops out of a deliberate, organized, and conscious effort on part of its members. So whenever there is a deliberate, organized, it's not. It could be organic, but obviously there is a deliberation. There's an organization as a and a consciousness. You can't just change. Social movement cannot be without that to construct a more satisfying culture for themselves. So, what we see in terms of what's happening in the US today, especially in the universities, where the students are protesting in the conflict or war between Israel and Palestine, is almost sort of becoming like a social movement where it is spreading from one university to another. And I just read yesterday that students from Oxford or Cambridge, Oxford, I think, also protested. So it has already crossed the Atlantic shore. It started in the US universities, it moved to UK. So, this is a deliberate, organized, and conscious efforts. So in Europe in the 19th century, the concept of social movement gained momentum, period of European social chaos, new rate for societal change, became what is known as social movements. Again, we need to understand that a lot of these definitions, especially academic and scholarly definitions, have a Western construct. That's because of the fact that possibly a lot of that's the way the Western construct was happening, where a lot of Western kind of definitions or angles were put forward for the whole world to follow. And I'm sure if we look at ancient Indian or Chinese or Arabic texts, there would have been some a name given, maybe not the term social movement. According to Marxist ideology, politicians and sociology of the time advocated for the liberation of oppressed class, establishing a new society by changing property rights and relationship. And this has historically also been something which, over a period of time, if you see India, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Sati Pratha, widow remarriage, Brahmo Samaj, Radha Krishan Mission, there were so many organizations which did all these social changes. A social movement can also be identified using various criteria, can be labeled as radical or reactionary based on the type of change it affects a society as a whole or its specific segment. So, if it's a radical change that a movement is hoping to respond or want, then it becomes a radical or reactionary based type of change. The need to comprehend the nature of the movement, which necessitates an understanding of its ideological foundation, aims. As soon as we use the term ideological, there is it is very much in the realm of politics. Aims, objectives, and goals that legitimizes and characterizes the movement. More often than not, social movements, as they grow, it can be a short-term movement, a long-term movement. There is no time defined to it. It And again, the way social movements pan out is either they dissolve, b they are able to do the changes what they aim to achieve, or c they transform themselves into a political organization, essentially coming into the mainstream. So social movement more often than not is an outsider or an outlier, but one of the ways it progresses is enters the mainstream. It can be long, short, it may be organized, but it also deals with some aspect of change, try to bring or resist a change. So there are some basic elements of a social movement. Collective behavior, as we talked about, considerable number of persons must be involved, extends beyond a single event or a community. Only when local activities spread across several communities. That's why what's happening in the US universities almost like a social movement. It is a social movement in the sense it's a collective behavior, it extends beyond a single event or community, and then involves systemic efforts and are change oriented. So, what the US universities or the students are trying to do out there is trying to push the US politicians to relook at the support that is being given, or they are wanting to relook at the way things are. So, how changes are happening. For example, I was just reading a news article whereby Ireland, Spain, and Norway are going to recognize the Palestine state on 28th May. And I was hearing the foreign ministry of Slovakia or one of these Balkan states also saying that we are going to have a parliament session, we are going to recognize the Palestinian state. So there is obviously all these things are slow. They have as their objective some form of change in the way people think, in what they believe, in their behavior. Some movements, however, have their objectives, the protection of existing value and none which appears to be threatened or of revivalist nature. It need not be a change. It could also be a movement for protecting something. For example, caste-based movements happen all the time. For example, when we are talking about, let's say, Maratha reservations, or we're talking about Rajput reservations, that wants something to be done in terms of holding on to some values or norms which have been transgressed. According to some scholars, contemporary social movements are a result of socio-psychological rush to modernization. Some scholars. Majority of the movement activists have been urban immigrants from small towns, lower middle class, rural families. Newcomers to city require psychological relief. So obviously, with human being, as I've said a couple of times, and I keep reiterating, there is never a deterministic way things happen, because anytime or every time somebody explains that this was the reason which caused this, it's a very deterministic way. Human being works in a very myriad kind of a way. There are multiple things which are happening at the same time, and then at a particular point something happens which, as they say, proverbial last straw on the camel's back, and something starts happening. So, example, when the Nirbhaya rape case happened and a lot of protests happened in Delhi, it was not that particular rape incident. That particular rape incident was just the last spark which got people to get agitated and protest. There had been, building up because of women's security, because of, the way policing was done, because of law and order, and so on and so forth. In recent years, majority of movement activists have been urban migrants. Newcomers to the city require psychological relief or social dislocation, personal loneliness. And that is, some scholars believe this is the reason why we see more and more of contemporary social movements. People feel increasingly insignificant, out of place, daily life becomes more industrialized, bureaucratized, urban, large scale. Market disruptions, labor organization, and large corporations create a sense of insecurity. Today, strangely, the more technology we have, the more faster means of communication we have, the more we are understanding nature and things around. You see, our sense of insecurity is growing, because the more we understand, we realize the lesser we know. And obviously, that is where faith-based religions come in, because that allows some amount of mooring for people. Uprooted, economically beleaguered, and dissatisfied with declining social status, urban immigrants turn to social movements to solve their problems. And that's where politicians a lot of times take advantage of dissatisfaction to channel people in a particular direction, in a particular ideology, and so on and so forth. So let's look at some movements. Pre-independence, the Gadar movement, international political movement consisting of diaspora. In fact, Gadar movement was started by Indian diaspora to overthrow British rule. Dates back to 1913 in Astoria, Oregon, in the United States. This is before World War I. Many of the Gadar party founders and leaders, including Sohan Singh Bhakna, would go and join Babbar Akali movement, help in logistic, as party and publishing its own newspaper in post-World War. So it was spanning before the First World War, then the World War I happened, a lot of things moved, and then World War II happened, and then India's independence happened. movement was created by revolutionaries who lived and worked on west coast of US and Canada, spread to India and Indian diasporic communities. So it started in the diaspora communities and then spread to India. The group would then splinter into two factions in 14 with Sikh majority as Azad Punjab. And remember, Punjab that time was the unified Punjab. What Punjab is there in present day Pakistan and what Punjab is there is India, present day Indian state. Azad Punjab Gadar and the Hindu majority faction known as the Hindustan Gadar. This is Singh 1969. The Azad Punjab Gadar headquartered somewhere near Stockholm, California, where the Hindustan Gadar was also very close by in Oakland in the suburb of San Francisco. So both of them were very close by, but I suppose they differentiated in terms of how much they wanted to engage or would they be militant towards British, or would it just be more in terms of canvassing for support and so on and so forth? Began to lose steam after heavy-handed the British crackdown, conclusion of World War I. Gadar Party also fractured into communists and socialists. Gadar Party was a source of struggle for many revolutionaries, including Bhagat Singh. So that's what they did. They brought in a lot of remember the whole concept of India as a country. We were before independence. They were princely states. They were British occupied provinces. There was a part which was with Portuguese. There was a part which was in French. Some Gadar Party members returned to Punjab to incite armed revolution, and they were unsuccessful, which was called the Lahore conspiracy case trial. And Lahore, incidentally, is in Pakistan, Punjab of Pakistan. So this was the Gadar Party. This was the Urdu newspaper of March 1914. And this was the English version, the Independent Hindustan. Look at the imagery they had put. There was the Bharat Mata, I suppose. That's what it was. And then there was this case of, the Komagata Maru incident. It was, this is a famous incident where this Gurjeet Singh Sandhu, an Indo-Canadian immigrant who was a Singaporean businessman, espoused the Gadarite cause while in. So there was this Japanese ship, Komagata Maru, and Canada had this immigration policy where they would only take people from British India if they sailed directly from India to Canada. Whereas what Gurjeet did was to get this ship sailed from British Hong Kong via Shanghai, China, Japan to Colombia. And obviously, this ship was returned from the shores of Canada. They didn't allow this ship to dock. It was escorted back to this place called Baj in Calcutta. And here a riot took place where a lot of people died. So this was a famous Komagato Maru incident. But what Gurjeet Singh Sandhu was trying to do was trying to push emigration from British India via various routes. Then, of course, the Indian National Army, also known as the Azad Hind Fauj, formed by nationally during the World War II, attracted volunteers from Indian expats in Southeast Asia, including prisoners of war captured by the Japanese. Support along Indians both within India and abroad. Mohan Singh, Ras Bihari Bose, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Led the movement, made it transnational, covering entire South Asia. 21st, 1943, announced the formation of provisional government in Singapore with himself as the prime minister. INA certainly fits this description of SM as it mobilized people around a common cause, the liberation of India. It also played a significant role in rising national sentiments. Also, INA's actions and trials of its members at the Red Fort trials stirred up widespread public sympathy and support. So obviously, it was collective, it was widespread, it was not just one event, it was deliberate. So it fits into a social movement scenario. Then, of course, the nationalist movement by Gandhi in South Africa protested against colonial and racial discrimination. He was the leading figure in anti-colonial movements in South Africa, Fiji, Mauritius. In fact, Gandhiji becomes a major brand in terms of non-violence, in terms of struggle against imperialism. Many colonies fight against British, French, and Dutch powers simultaneously. Tremendous impact on Indian diaspora, first person to integrate the scattered Indians worldwide. He also inspired native leaders such as Nelson Mandela and Indian diaspora in various countries too. So all these had ripple effects as to how people perceived, injustice across, was very sensitive towards indentured labor. What I told you, Mauritius is completely indentured from India, labor from India, the land of the Vaish, as one research paper had put it in 24 as president of the Indian National Congress. Mahatma referred to the inhuman treatment of indentured Indians in Mauritius. In fact, there are two institutes, Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Indian Immigration in Mauritius. There is the Mahatma Gandhi Institute for Cultural Cooperation, Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago. All these people were indentured laborers. Guyana, Trinidad, Tobago, lots of Caribbeans have Indians, promoting India and diaspora relations. So let's look at the recent Indian social movements has been instrumental in supporting various social movements in India through. And if you see also, we may not get to know a lot, but all the time there is something or the other. With such a vast country like India, with such a diverse country like India, obviously, at any moment of time, some community or the other would be up in arms with respect to something which is either done by the state or by any other community or by private parties. So there are these social movements which continuously, and that's what is the beauty of democracy in terms of allowing such social movements. So one famous social movement was the Narmada Bachao Andolan by environmental activist Medha Patekar. In fact, I was reading about Medha. She had actually gone to Narmada among the tribes to do her, I think, her PhD dissertation or a MA dissertation. And then she stayed out there and led this movement. Indian diaspora, particularly countries like US, UK, supported NBA by organizing protests, raising funds, lobbying the respective governments to pressurize India to consider the environment impact. Narmada Bachao Andolan was a major social movement, legacy, and how it created a generation of activists in India. And obviously, the state reacted by terming this social movements or their leaders as anti-national and so on and so forth, which is a normal way states react. Late 80s grassroots protests in Narmada Valley had been supplemented by organizations such as International River Networks, Friends of the Earth, Cultural Survival. Based in US, Europe, these NGOs targeted World Bank. In fact, World Bank withdrew from the project in 1993. This project went on for a very long time. There was a lot of strife in terms of rehabilitation of people, and mostly this River Valley projects always had Adivasis on the river banks. There was a full paper which was written by, this was Tennessee State University, Lindsay Gates. Dam descent protest methods and result in Indian neighborhood. So this paper is available online in case somebody searches. You can find it. Then, of course, there are other movements like the anti-corruption, the India against corruption movement, spearheaded by Anna Hazare. So this particular social movement ended up as Aam Aadmi Party. A large part of the movement's people ended up as a political party. Essentially, the social movement mainstreamed. So that is how the social movement can convert into a mainstream part. Non-resident Indians organized rallies, campaigns in various countries, solidarity with the movement, demand from strong anti-corruption law. Then there were women rights movement, such as protests against sexual violence following the Nirbhaya case 1212, received support from Indian diaspora, NRI. Today also you see NRIs protest in Times Square. And with social media, it becomes all the more easy for messages to go back and forth. We have seen an Indian blogger, Dhruv Rathi, who now has 20 million followers, take a political stance, makes short videos, long videos, blogs. Then there are environmental movements advocating for environment conservation, sustainability. Diaspora organizations and individuals contribute funding for environmental conservation projects, collaborate with local activists, NGOs in India. Remember that when we talk about diaspora, there is a connect back home. The families are back home. Today, India has one of the biggest diasporas in the world. Indian diaspora has the biggest remittances among all diasporas which come back into India. In fact, no wonder the Indian diaspora greatly influenced the Indian politics. In fact, a lot of Indians are very chaffed with the diaspora as to why they involve themselves with Indian politics, but that is the way it is. It's a huge diaspora and it is connected back home. Then there are, of course, the Dalit right movement, advocating for rights of Dalit. NRIs have organized conferences, fundraisers, and awareness campaigns. LGBTQ plus rights movement. In fact, when the Supreme Court was deliberating on, the same-sex marriage or decriminalizing, LGBT, the international diaspora were very much in the play. NRIs have played a crucial role in advocating for LGBTQ plus rights with their communities abroad and supporting organizations to equal and acceptance. Farmer movement, the laws which sparked a massive protest after they were passed in September 20 was designed to modernize Indian agriculture. Indian farmers and critics say it gave advantage to corporations, perceptions, how a particular thing is perceived. For example, at Berkeley Center, I came across this paper, Fate, Trauma, and Transnational Connections with India Farmer Protest by Devgan. Shruti Devgan is an associate professor in one of the universities out there. Georgetown University, I think. Is it? No, Bowdoin College. She's an associate professor of sociology, Bowdoin College. Remember, it still falls under sociology, while Sikh farmers on the ground are doing the work of mobilization, transnational Sikhs across the globe. And Sikhs were very much part of it because Sikh farmers during the protests, Sikh and Jat farmers from Haryana, Sikh farmers from Punjab and Jat farmers from Haryana were very much in the forefront. Also because of the fact Delhi is right next door. You can't have farmers from South India en masse trying to come to Delhi. So that is how it was. And then there was a political slant to it with one party accusing Sikhs and the diaspora of fomenting trouble and so on and so forth. Diaspora centripetal organization toward Punjab in the quest for ways to port trans. And diasporas always forge these transnational connections, became exaggerated and visible during certain critical moments, as what we are saying. So inevitably, this today, especially the diaspora are no longer the what the indentured labor was, that once they had sailed, they were a part of the new land. There was no way they could connect back. Today, with the 24/7 media, with the faster transportation, people are moving back and forth. You are getting news in real time. You're connected. You have an opinion. So handling diaspora relation is a full-term task. It's not it's not a part-time thing which can be done with other things. While diaspora speaks are often careful to point out that the movement is not about religion, in extending the solidarity, they invariably invoke spiritual. Remember, this is an identity thing. The ethnic identity, the religious identity, the caste identity. There are all these identities which keep coming out. And again, as I said, the way identities plays out is any person will take an identity which is beneficial at that particular moment. with the Sangat or community as well as their identity as farmer, linear, and political scene. So I have a mother dairy close by whose owner is a Fauji who also went and sat in the farmer agitation. So I said, why are you going and sitting in the farmer agitation? He says, I'm also a farmer. And he had a particular political ideology which was against the ideology of the farmers, and yet he was there. So how these identities keep on moving, transnational Sikhs are drawing upon these lineages with farming faith in Punjab to provide moral and material aid to struggling farmers. So that's what Shruti Devgan writes in a paper in The Economist. The Indian diaspora is bigger and more influential than any in history. Adobe, Britain, and Channel are all run by people with Indian roots. So the Indian diaspora is a very old diaspora, considering indentured, starting with indentured labor, starting with slaves, with indentured labor, passage, passage people, and so on and so forth. And this is a 2023 article, New York. There is this full book on social movements in the Indian diaspora. I have not read this book, but it's a Routledge Contemporary South Asian series. I was trying to get some snippets. So in case you want to know a little bit about social movements in Indian diaspora, you can see this book. However, as I said, if the idea of an SLM and the PPT or this presentation is get to know a little more about all these aspects, so that your knowledge is enhanced in terms of how the diaspora movements happen, how the transnational movements happen, as well as also the fact that when you write for an exam or submit your assignments, you are able to get perspectives from various areas. Okay, let's sum up. Social movement, act of carrying out, resisting, or undoing a social change, aims to bring about reforms or change in social structure. No fixed life, can be long or short, may or may not be organized, or deals with some aspect of change. It may try to bring or resist a change. I don't know what. Gadar movement was an international political movement. Indian diaspora to overthrow British rule. INA, also known as Azadin Fauj, were former Indian nationals, attracted volunteers from Indian expats. Gandhi's protest against colonial racial discovery, leading figure who led the anti-colonial movement, has been instrumental in supporting various social movements. And it makes sense also because that also keeps the connections intact between the diaspora and the local. Remember, the families are out there, and with Indian family system and the kinship system, the kinship is an extended family. As we had looked at one of the earlier units, the external diaspora links always remain active. Indian diaspora with the family, considering arranged marriages and marriages within caste and so forth. Normally, wherever they are, they form a transnational group and they are very active and connected. Okay, we have come to an end. Any questions that you would like to ask? Let me start my video. Hi. Any questions? Anything that you would like to share? Anything of interest that you'd like to share with the group? Any questions that you'd like to ask? Or any comments that you'd like to make? Is it as hot across the country as it is in Delhi, or things have eased out somewhere? Swadesh, how are things in Telangana, or are you in Telangana or what?
More than 46
Oh,
degrees.
damn. So uniformly, the country is suffering in terms of heat.
Yeah, sir. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Sir, you said that many movements, they have the participation of Indian diaspora.
Sorry,
That is
what?
the thing, remarkable day Mahatma Gandhi when came back to India.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas.
Absolutely.
Celebrations every 2 years.
Absolutely.
Government of India.
Absolutely.
Recognizing the our migrants' contribution to nation.
See, again, as I was saying today, with such a big diaspora as India has, it requires a full, vision, document as well as a whole setup to look after diaspora affairs. We can't do ad hocism or, I don't like this guy, so I will take his OCI card. I don't like, you cannot work like this with diasporas today because today the transnational diaspora is a totally different ball game than the earlier indentured diaspora.
Yeah, sir. The main our statements Mahatma Gandhi and Subhash Chandra Bose.
Correct.
Their contribution is very
Phenomenal. Phenomenal.
it's wonderful before independence.
Correct. Phenomenal. Absolutely. You're absolutely
Yes.
right. Bose did with the Southeast Asia what Gandhi did with the rest of the world. Absolutely. Any other comment, question, sharing? Dev Pragya? Oh, okay. Somebody dropped off. Okay, so in case there is nothing, again, as I said, in case you want a copy of the PPT, you can send me a mail on my mail ID at the rate of, that's my mail ID. You can send me a mail. I'll send you the PPT. If there are any specific articles that you look forward, you can always correspond with me. I am not on WhatsApp. So I am on Signal and Telegram. You can send me a message in case you are on Signal or Telegram. That's my number. Oh, sorry. The number is, that's my number. Sorry. That was my number. So you can correspond with me. Anything that you need to ask, you can send me a mail. And if there is nothing else, then what I will do is I will close the class because, as I said, I have to try again to try and do my constitutional right of voting, see if I can stand in a line and get to vote. And I will see you next Saturday, 3 o'clock, with the next unit, the unit 62, which is I think on mobility. So we'll look at mobility. In between, as I keep telling you, please keep sharing things with each other on your groups. That is a great way to exchange information and knowledge. As well, it will help you prepare for your assignments and exam. So you can do that. Okay. Okay. So if there's nothing else, I'll take your leave. Have a wonderful weekend and a nice week ahead. And I'll see you next Saturday at 3 o'clock. Bye then, guys. Bye.